19 black women and a socialist to be elected judge in Houston is not a small deal.
How much of it is really tech and how much of it is really just cheap labor?
There's just a strange, starry expression that he has.
After more than 200 North American cities threw themselves at Amazon's feet, the company is splitting its second headquarters between Long Island City in New York and Crystal City in Arlington, Virginia. Amazon says it'll invest $5 billion and create more than 50,000 jobs, but not for free. The company owned by the world's richest man is in line to get more than $2 billion in tax breaks. More than 2 years after Britain voted to leave the European Union, the two sides have reached a draft agreement on how their divorce will play out. Details aren't yet public, and tomorrow, Prime Minister Theresa May will show the plan to her cabinet for approval before it can be voted on by parliaments in Britain and the EU. Juul is halting sales of most of its flavored e-cigarette cartridges in stores, deleting its Facebook and Instagram accounts, and putting new measures in place to make sure its online customers are over 21. The changes come just after an FDA-issued deadline for e-cigarette manufacturers to deliver a plan to stop minors from vaping or risk a total ban on flavored e-cigarettes. First Lady Melania Trump made the unprecedented move of publicly pushing for the Deputy National Security Advisor to be fired. The First Lady's office said Mira Ricardel, quote, no longer deserves the honor of serving in this White House, but didn't elaborate on why.
Hexakaas.
Europe's highest court ruled the taste of food can't be protected by copyright. A Dutch cheese company wanted to protect the taste of its cheese dip against an allegedly infringing dip, but the court said because a food's taste is described by sensations, it's not objective enough to be eligible. A week after the midterms, votes are still being tallied. Florida is in the middle of a contentious recount, and a federal judge in Georgia has ruled that more than 20,000 provisional ballots have to play a part in deciding the next governor. Even if Democrats don't win those races, they're feeling good about what they pulled off. So far, the party has picked up 32 House seats, 7 governorships, and won control of 8 state legislatures, in part because of historic turnout for a midterm. And that's made a big difference in down-ballot races, too, especially in Houston.
You gotta be prepared when you do CrossFit.
Judge Mark Carter has a lot to work through. A few days ago, he lost his campaign for re-election as a criminal court judge in Harris County. He'd been on the bench for 15 years.
Complete slaughter, man. It was the nuclear option. They took everybody out, good and bad.
Carter was one of 59 Republican judges who got wiped out by Democrats, thanks to an unusual quirk in the Texas election process. Voters can cast a straight ticket, meaning they check a single box and automatically vote for every Republican or every Democrat on the ballot. Harris County has been trending blue for years now, but Beto O'Rourke brought out a surge of Democratic voters. Carter lost to someone who didn't even bother to campaign. What happened in the election here?
You know, what happened in this election was what happens in every election in Texas, and that is, you know, is going to be a party that wins.
Is that frustrating to you?
You know, not when you go into the game knowing what the rules are. When I accepted an appointment as a Republican and ran as a Republican for 15 years, I knew that being elected was not based on how good a job I was doing, because all of the Republicans that ran in the previous years all had the same number of votes that I had.
The changes that are coming to Houston's criminal justice system have reformers like Jay Jenkins seriously excited.
For 19 black women and a socialist to be elected judge in Houston, which is the epicenter of mass incarceration, is not a small deal.
For the past few years, Jenkins's group has been fighting to reform Houston's bail system, which has left the city's jails packed with people who haven't been convicted of anything. A federal court recently found the practice unconstitutional.
The possibility that we could fix some of the issues that the sitting judges have just proved unwilling or unable to fix is on the horizon. You know, just the possibility of getting it done is an improvement over what we had.
Stephen Halpert, a public defender in Harris County, agrees that new faces on the bench will be a good thing. But he worries about what it'll mean to have so many new judges who weren't exactly picked for their resumes.
You have a number, quite a few, of the new judges that have never tried a murder case, let alone a capital murder case. It's going to be a learning experience for everybody, and that's not always good, especially if you're a defendant.
Were there some judges that lost that really didn't deserve to lose?
There are judges that are universally liked by the defense bar, prosecutors, and that's unusual. And it's sad to see them go, but if they are going to do straight ticket, you're going to get some good judges in, but you're going to lose some really good judges.
This is a relic here, huh? Campaigning hasn't traditionally been a big part of your job.
No, I hate it.
Texas is doing what it can to prevent this kind of thing from happening again. In 2020, there'll be no more straight ticket voting. Only 7 states will still have it. But judges will still be elected, and the process will continue to be partisan. Is this the right way to choose judges in
Of course
Harris
not.
County?
No. The best way to select judges is through a nonpartisan appointment and retention system. You can either be a good politician or you can be a good judge. You can't be both.
On the campaign trail this year, most Democratic candidates really wanted to talk about Donald Trump. The person they really didn't want to talk about was one of their own leaders.
Good afternoon, everyone. And a good afternoon it is on a great day for the American people.
According to a Washington Post analysis during the campaign, about a third of non-incumbent House Democratic candidates either outright said they'd oppose her for Speaker or dodge the question. Young candidates say they want fresh leadership. Progressives are worried she's too willing to compromise on their priorities. Centrists don't want to be tied to someone who polls badly with more conservative voters. Now that they've been elected, though, the question of whether to back Pelosi for Speaker is a bit more challenging to answer. Would you vote for Pelosi as Speaker?
Yeah, so I haven't taken a position yet, just gotten to Washington, so eager to meet with Leader Pelosi as well as all the leadership team and the candidates that are running.
One of the stubborn realities here is that Pelosi is one of the party's top fundraisers, which means she has the power to help members in tough races get reelected. And no one has announced they'll run against her. Any potential challenger would probably come from the Progressive Caucus, which is working to rally opposition to Pelosi. But faced with the cameras, those members took a pass on the whole issue.
We are concerned not only about the top spot, but we are concerned about what all of leadership looks like.
All this jockeying is more than just palace intrigue. The Speaker of the House is a big deal and second in line to the presidency, after the vice president. Day to day, the Speaker sets the legislative agenda, deciding what gets voted on when. And with the Democrats' biggest names expected to spend the next 18 months fighting over the presidential primary, the Speaker will be one of the de facto leaders of a fractured party, the person who helps shape its agenda, message, and platform heading into 2020. Pelosi seems to have all this in mind when she's made her case.
And I think I'm the best person to go forward to unify, to negotiate. I'm a good negotiator, as anyone can see in terms of how we have won every negotiation.
But she doesn't have a ton of room for error. To win the speakership, she'll need to win the internal Democratic caucus vote, scheduled for the week after Thanksgiving, and then win the full vote on the floor of the House. At least 8 sitting lawmakers have told Politico they plan to vote against Pelosi. Another 5 incoming freshmen have said they won't vote for her either, and more than a dozen were critical of her during the campaign, though they didn't commit to opposing her outright. Representative-elect Joe Cunningham is one of the Democrats that's openly opposed to Pelosi.
It's nothing personal against Leader Pelosi. It's just that we need, a new voice and a new face to put behind this new vision moving forward. So,
are there any circumstances under which you would support her?
No.
Even if Pelosi wins, she'll oversee the most demographically and ideologically diverse caucus Democrats have ever had, with members who promised to work with Republicans alongside ones who promised to impeach Trump. And there are signs the most disruptive new Democrats won't play nice just because they're caucus members now. Today, one of the progressive stars of the freshman class, New York Representative-elect Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, did actually compliment Pelosi. But she did it while protesting about climate change, inside Pelosi's office.
The world's biggest online retailer kicked off its major annual sale with a spectacle that included Mickey and Mariah. The event's called Singles Day, and it's driven by Alibaba, China's major e-commerce company, which set a new record at this year's sale of about $31 billion. But that's not enough for Alibaba. Like Amazon in the US, the company is expanding into brick-and-mortar stores and focusing on a product that a lot of people are still reluctant to buy online: food.
This is one of more than 90 grocery stores run by Alibaba, called Hema. The tech here matches the brand's image as China's great disruptor. Robots, overhead conveyor belts, and facial recognition checkouts repurpose sci-fi tech to sell shrink-wrapped tomatoes and fresh crabs in a shop named after a hippo. But its customers hardly have time to notice. And that's why they come.
比较方便呢。比较方便啊。非常方便。
People in China only do about 15% of shopping online. Alibaba wants to bring in the rest by holding their hands through an online experience in a physical space. Alibaba's apps are key to that strategy. To shop here, you have to use the Hema app, which links to another Alibaba service, Alipay. That app also has extras, like links to recipes and information on where food is from.
可能之前我们一直也在找一种好的方式，怎么样能给消费者带来更好的体验，包括有一些传统卖场和电商没有解决的一些痛点，包括这个商品的新鲜度，如何快速的送到消费者手里。
Tell us about this conveyor belt. It's crazy.
对，那个呢其实是根据我们在线上，我们在 APP 上有顾客下单以后，我们在这里就能收到，然后根据我们后台的技术的算法，会派发到订单给到我们的这个拣货同学。 拣货同学他就会根据他自己的分区去拣相应的商品，然后把它直接就放到这个 conveyor belt 上面去。在最后我们有 packing， 还有 delivery， 就这个速度在整个门店内操作是非常快的。
Pickers are paid by order. So are delivery guys who take groceries on bikes straight to customers' front doors for free in half an hour.
你好，我的盒马是订员。
Those app orders now count for over half of business.
I know when the Hema supermarket concept came online, a lot of people were impressed by the tech. But I've noticed as well, there's a really strong reliance on just labor, right? There's a lot of people running around. So how much of it is really tech and how much of it is really just cheap labor?
我们其实并不讲是一定是廉价劳动力，其实可以看到我们的员工在这里，他们工作得非常开心，而且很年轻。 那我们讲的是，我们能够跟传统的比，我们在用人上能够提高我们的效能。
Lou, a stay-at-home dad, spends about $800 a month here.
因为家比较近的话，就是天天都会过来。应该盒马现在不应该叫 supermarket 了吧？它应该算是一个体验店了吧？因为以前我们看到很多的那个好的食品，它没有体验。
应该每天会用很多不同阿里巴巴的，
反正它几个 APP， 你的生活就，它这个就可以选择了，就不用去用其他的 APP。
你整个生活在阿里巴巴的 APP 上，
有一点像神一般的生活，就是你想要什么，再点点点就可以了。
By letting customers feel like God, Alibaba is converting them to a system, and once they're in, mining their data to sell them more stuff online. But that doesn't seem to bother other diners who can order drunken crab without flagging down a waiter.
这个不应该，不会，我相信应该是没问题。你现在都做也没出现问题啊。
你是相信这些公司，或者你相信政府？
全部相信吧。 政府让的开发，政府就相信他，我们也相信政府。
Opening statements began today in the trial of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, but not before some drama. The judge had to replace 2 jurors. One said he had a conflict with his job. The other offered up a doctor's note, citing anxiety. Security is high. Cameras aren't allowed in. And U.S. Marshals will escort him to court from a cell in an undisclosed location. 2 artists have been drawing El Chapo since he started making pre-trial appearances last year.
My name's Christine Cornell. I'm a courtroom artist. I started in 1975. I grew up in this business. I did it straight out of art school, where they don't allow cameras in. I'm their camera. I consider myself both a journalist and an artist.
My name is Elizabeth Williams. I've been doing courtroom artwork since 1980. You're a visual journalist. El Chapo's a challenge to draw because he is so well known. People know his face.
This is a drawing from his first appearance in court. This is the prosecutor and his defense attorney. These are always down and dirty arraignments. They take place in, 10 minutes.
I remember they were going to arraign him, and they told me where to go and when, and they brought him out of the lockup. And I remember, El Chapo stands for is shorty, right? So he wasn't certainly as short as I thought.
This was I think it was the second time I drew him, and his absolutely glamorous wife was in the room. And he's got a very odd quality about his face, and I was trying to show it in his eyes, and that's it. I think he's had plastic surgery, which has lifted up his epicampal fold, and you can see a little bit more over his iris than you normally can, and they tended to be a tiny bit bloodshot too. There's just a strange, starey expression that he has.
You get off like by a millimeter with that nose or those eyes, and you sort of miss the look, he kind of moves over at the judge, and then he'll look over at his wife, and then lately he's looked at his wife a lot more.
He stares at his wife all the time, and then he's got these 2 little bouncing twin-like girls, and she dresses them identically.
He's way over here. She's way over there. That's really how it is, all right? They aren't like this at all. I mean, she's way, like that. And so you have all this empty dead space, so you have to do it as 2 pictures.
If I'm sitting directly behind the defendant, and they're right in front of me, and then I see everything like that, sometimes I just change my perspective in my head, That's all there is to it.
I wanted to be a fashion illustrator. I worked in the Hollywood industry doing costume illustration for various designers. Then I also did other jobs. And the problem was that I really couldn't make ends meet. And so my professor suggested that I do courtroom art.
Never in a million years thought I was going to be a courtroom artist. I was always inclined more towards fine arts. But this is the first thing that I did where they just kept calling me to come back. And it's actually, turned out to be a real gift of mine to do portraits.
We're heading to Brooklyn Federal Court. The El Chapo trial is starting today with the opening statements.
Courtroom art has changed over the years in several ways. One of the most important ways is that the speed of it. You have to be much faster because of the 24-hour news cycle. Back in the 80s, there were 2 news stories. The 5 was the local and the 6 was the evening. And you just had to have your artwork done by, say, 3 o'clock. And they could get the artwork on the air.
Are you both artists?
No, I'm the artist.
You're the artist?
Yeah.
I'm a journalist.
Yeah, it's raining. You won't be out there long. just decimate this thing. It's a very tough job. Nobody hands it to you in a platter. Nobody sits down and poses for you. Sometimes you walk into the room and you go like, who's the defendant? And nobody knows, you know? And you just go like, oh, dang, you know, this is gonna last 5 minutes. Am I gonna get it? You know, am I gonna make a mistake? Am I gonna choose the wrong person? Sometimes you do. Since I started in the 70s, I was told it was a dying profession and that we were like rats on a sinking ship. And the truth of the matter is that it is competitive, and it did used to support an awful lot more artists than it does today. And we are much more on each other's turf over, you know, who gets his job.
And we will keep the criminals, drug dealers, and terrorists the hell out of our country.
Donald Trump says he's committed to protecting America from terrorism. Everybody's cool with that. But what kind of terrorism are we talking about, Mr. President? I'm pretty sure he's talking about the folks who look like this and this. And these are dangerous people responsible for taking American lives, but he's also talking about these people. Do we really need to be scared of them? Because if we look at the numbers, we shouldn't be. Almost 3/4 of extremist-related deaths in America over the last 10 years were at the hands of, you guessed it, white men. But for some reason, the president won't call them terrorists. They're mentally ill. They're unstable. Lone wolves. We should at least call them a wolf pack because there's a lot of them. Americans are nearly twice as likely to be killed by a white male terrorist than a Muslim, and it happens when you're minding your own business. Walking down the street, enjoying a concert, attending a political rally, practicing baseball, worshiping at a church, praying at a synagogue, shopping for groceries, posing in downward dog in a yoga class, even going to school. In 2018 alone, there have been at least 10 acts of terror carried out by white American men. The latest being at Borderline Bar and Grill, where a white guy killed 12 people. You know what? We shouldn't be that surprised. White men have been terrorizing Americans for a long time. When the president says terrorist, he's not talking about any of these wonderful people. So, when I'm aware of an immigrant or Muslim in my presence, I'm cool as penguin feet. However, when I see a white man, shouldn't I wonder if he's mentally stable? That would suck, because living a life afraid of terror is a terrible existence, and there are a lot of white dudes in America. So, Mr. President, will you fulfill your promise of protecting America from terrorists, which, statistically speaking, are men who look just like you?